Okay, we're going to call this Economic Development Committee meeting to order. It is August 7th, 2025, and we first have courtesy of the floor. And I think we're going to be having our Director of Community Economic Development, Tina Smith. Oh, no, we're going to have County Executive Lamont McClure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of County Council here present for the committee. We have an affordability crisis in Northampton County, and as you know, it's a national problem that cries out for national solutions, but until such a time as there is national momentum for that, we must do in our little corner of the world what we can to try and ameliorate this national crisis. And so, as you know, we've been working in Forks Township in partnership and cooperation with Habitat for Humanity to build affordable housing in Northampton County. Now, it's a little more than 30 units. It's not going to solve the problem, but it is a good start because what we understand is happening to the market is this. There aren't enough rental units in the market in Northampton County and the Lehigh Valley. So what is happening is people who can afford more apartment are renting apartments that other folks cannot afford now because the rents are rising and it's driving other people out of the market. It's also exacerbating our homelessness problem here in Northampton County in the Lehigh Valley, which has been in the news lately quite a bit too. But I am here today to report some good and exciting news to Council, and I wanted to come to the Economic Development Committee in particular to report this. The Northampton County Industrial Development Authority has, after a great deal of work, approved the Dixie TIF project to move forward. So they did that this afternoon in their meeting, which commenced at 1 o'clock. So I believe the process, and Ms. Smith probably has a better handle on how the process moves forward on the timeline, but I believe it goes to the borough, the school district, and then will come to us for a final disposition in accordance with the state statute. So this is very exciting. And to round back to my talk with you about the affordability crisis that we have in our housing market here in Northampton County, we're going to get over $1 million. When this is finally approved, we're going to get over $1 million to put towards our development in our project with Habitat for Humanity and Forks to do affordable housing. So I just wanted to make that report to you. Thank you very much for indulging me.
Thank you, Mr. McClure. Appreciate that. We've been talking about some housing issues here and there during the course of this Economic Development Committee meeting agendas over the past few months, and it is good to hear that news that the IDA passed it, and boy, that's very good news. So.
Yeah, so Executive McClure is correct. It will go next step to the school district and the borough, and then we'll come before you again. The timeline starts all over again, so I wouldn't suspect that we'll be seeing it here, probably September, and then we have the 30-day grace period, and then it'll come back for council consideration, probably in October.
That's great.
So as soon as I have a timeline, I'll be in touch with Aileen because we've got to put the public notice in the paper. But yeah, so one step forward.
Yeah, and real quick too, in terms of housing issues and what this committee can and maybe hearing in the future, I've been communicating with the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission about having them come to a committee meeting in the future to specifically dive into their housing report. It's a pretty robust report. There have been various meetings, workshops on that particular report, and I'd like for the Economic Development Committee here to be able to see that, understand it, digest it a bit so we can understand this housing crisis that we're going through here in Northampton County a little bit better. So I just wanted to throw that out there to the committee. And Ms. Smith, thank you
Sure.
for being here with regard to courtesy of the floor. This is actually at my request because late, and it was after the agenda had been put together for this meeting, I was specifically wanting to get a better handle and picture of where we are at in terms of the food insecurity with the grants that have been doled out, what we have been doing from the DCED perspective, because as some of us may have read this past week, Second Harvest Food Bank things are in peril right now for them, what they are going through due to the severe funding cuts that have been coming down from Washington during 2025 here. And here in Pennsylvania, a total of $13 million in cuts have been made to 189 farms, 14 food banks. And I was just at a food drive this past weekend at the Nazareth Farmers Market that was specifically helping the Nazareth Food Bank. So I asked Tina, like, where we are at right now in terms of any possible grants, what we could potentially be doing in the future, but to get a refresher and an update on what the administration has done to help our local food banks, and again, to see where we can possibly go in the future. So do you have some information here that you can
Sure,
present
yep.
to the committee?
So I'm happy to share. I just pulled some numbers that I wanted to go over, so not just food bank specific, but food insecurity specific. So that includes entities such as Meals on Wheels. DCED has given Meals on Wheels specifically for meal delivery driver salaries through our Grow Norco program, $60,000 as of 23 and 24. We've also given to the Hispanic Center of the Lehigh Valley for their food pantry, which again is through Grow Norco, total amounts of $75,000 through 23 and 24. So that's $135,000 from our county Grow Norco grants for those. The big funding primarily always comes from our federal programs. You'll hear more about that through our CDBG list. But just to go through 2021, I'll give you copies of this as well. I didn't have time to make them if anybody's interested. But 2021 Nazareth Food Pantry for food purchases, $10,000. Bangor Area School District for grab-and-go meals, $25,000. Nazareth Area School District for food purchasing, $25,000. Northampton Area School District for food purchases, $25,000. Bethlehem Emergency Shelter for food purchases, $10,000. Third Street Alliance food purchases for their shelter, $10,000. Easton Area Neighborhood Center for food purchases, $10,000. Hispanic Center, $10,000. Kellen Foundation for equipment, $50,000. Penargil Area School District Families First Food Pantry, $25,000. Saucon Valley School District Grab and Go Meals, $25,000. Mission of Love Food Bank, which is in our northern tier for equipment purchases, $50,000. Wilson Area School District, the Lynx Food Pantry, $25,000. Shiloh, Southside Easton, food purchases for their winter shelter, $5,000. Second Harvest, which does all of the area food banks with the exception of Nazareth, for their food hub equipment, $300,000. Safe Harbor Food Shelter, $10,000. Meals on Wheels, $35,000. That's just all in 2021. Moving to 2023, Portland Area Food Pantry, $20,000. Second Harvest for Phase 2 of their food hub completion, $300,000. Second Harvest for additional food purchases, over $100,000. Meals on Wheels, $50,000. Second Harvest Retail Recovery, $50,000. Second Harvest Food Purchase, $65,000. That's 2024. Going into 2025, Bangor Area School District, $10,000. Penargil, $10,000. Wilson, $10,000. BES, Bethlehem Emergency Shelter, $5,000. Safe Harbor Homeless Food Shelter, $5,000. Shiloh, $5,000. Nazareth Food Bank, $5,000. Slate Belt Food Hub, $25,000. And then the Western Area Food Hub for food purchase, which is in Northampton Borough, $25,000. So all of this totaled from our programs comes to $1,329,000. So some significant work. Keep in mind, DCED is not the only department within the county that services these food agencies. So I took the liberty to get some data from Human Services as well, and their additional contracts amount to $511,400 from the years 2025 and 2026. and they're primarily through their Senior Area and Agency on Aging, Meals on Wheels, and CALV, Second Harvest. So we're busy, and I will tell you, just as a follow-up note, in light of what you said, Commissioner Warren, our phones are ringing. These agencies are really hurting, not just Second Harvest, but all these other food hubs, and we just don't have enough resources to answer the call of demand.
That's what I'm wondering, what we can possibly do in the future. I mean, I'm not gonna, I hesitate to say we run a food drive right here in council chambers. However,
Everything helps.
This is a lot of, this is a ton of money that is being spent,
And still not enough.
and it's still not enough for food insecurity
Correct.
within our communities, here in Northampton County. you know?
Yes, correct,
We are the Lehigh Valley as a whole, and this is just Northampton County.
correct.
So I appreciate the update.
Sure. If anybody needs any of this information, please let me know, and I'm happy to send it.
Is there any way you can possibly email that
Sure.
to me?
Yeah, happy
Because I
to.
know that I'm going to be speaking with Second Harvest Food Bank in the future. I'm going to be continuing to talk to Nazareth Food Bank, of course,
Mm-hmm.
the other food banks in my district as well. But we need to figure out something. We need to have some heads coming together to figure out what we can do. Because we've got the school year coming up as well, and we don't have a state budget. And I'm not even going to get into that right now at this point, but there's going to be some hungry kids out there. We have to
Hopefully
figure,
not, but-
we have to put our heads together
Sure.
as a community and figure out what we can do in the future. So,
Yep,
thank
happy
you
to
very
help
much.
anytime.
I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
And moving along with the agenda, we're going to have a presentation from the Bethlehem Area Public Library. We have the Executive Director, Josh Berg. How you doing, Josh?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Thanks for having me here. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you about libraries. I understand you've spoken to or heard from some of my colleagues, other libraries
Yeah.
around the county. We are the library that serves the city of Bethlehem, Bethlehem Township, Hanover Township, and Fountain Hill. So, as you know, there's all these distinct municipalities that each have their own library systems. Ours started as the city's library. I won't give you the whole history, but it started, in 1901, so we won't go through the whole history, but that's the beginning of our library's history. Over time, it had, grown from being the city library to being a 501c3. We function as a nonprofit, so we serve over 120,000 residents made up of those municipalities. There are some of those pockets of the county that have no library service. Right in our backyard in Bethlehem is Freemansburg. So it's like a constant source of struggles, honestly, for the folks who live there and for us as trying to run a regional organization, but it's totally optional whether or not they join the library or not. So
So it's really their decision on whether or not they want to join and collaborate?
yeah, going back many years, they were a member of the Bethlehem Area Public Library. Freemansburg was for many decades before my time there, and during my predecessor's time at trying to remember a timeline, maybe around 2008, maybe it was right after a census came out. So it's a per capita cost based on the residents, and their population had grown, and the per capita cost had gone up, and so their municipal leadership sort of viewed it as a untenable cost that they had to remove from their budget. So we've over time tried to make inroads to ask them to be part of the library system again, but it hasn't achieved sort of majority, whatever it needs to get there. So
Okay.
those folks still have no library service. We do have the main library downtown Church Street. We have Southside Branch. We built we renovated a building in Bethlehem Township to be like a mini branch library over there. We had former bookmobile that was towed to the location in Fountain Hill, so I'd never know what to call it because it's a bookmobile, but it doesn't move. It's just like a mini library built out of an old bookmobile. The library in Bloomsburg had this bookmobile. They're the only library in the state that has no physical building. They just have a vehicle because it's a very rural township, so they drive around. And then the mechanical parts of it kind of died, but the shell of the vehicle was in great shape, so they asked if anybody wanted to, ever dreamed of putting a mini library somewhere in their service area. So we were talking about it at the time, so we got one and towed it to Fountain Hill, and it's a mini library in the park there. We also have a brand-new bookmobile, which I'm happy to talk about. We have one of the few bookmobiles in the state, so it travels all through the service area, making stops at parks and schools and senior centers, community centers. This is really brand new. The date on here says May of 2025. But it was there were still some final touches being put on as recently as last month. So it was just about a year ago that the old one broke down, and we had a big capital campaign, big fundraising campaign. We had a lot of local support. We raised over $165,000 from just donations and grants and gifts and fundraisers, and we were able to purchase this vehicle, which actually is there's this company called usedmobilemedicalclinics.com. They sell old medical clinics that have been refurbished into various things, including bookmobiles. So we were able to give life to this old vehicle, and we hired a really great children's book author, illustrator, Zach O'Hara, to put the art on it. And there's a lot of donor names on the back you can't quite see, but a lot of our sponsors who chipped in and helped out and helped make this a reality. And the previous year, we had done a major renovation to our main library, so if it's been a little while since you've been to the first floor, it looks totally different. It hadn't been really fully redone since the library was built in 1967. It really looks like we have fewer books, but we don't. We have lower shelves, but we have more of them. So we lowered them and we moved them out, and we created more communal working spaces and better sight lines and more of dedicated computer area. Libraries built in the 60s obviously didn't have computer sections, so we had to sort of shoehorn them into what we had. So now it's much more intentional in its design. It's been really well received. One of the things I thought I'd mention here is oh man, how do I go back? I wanted to talk about some of the work that we have done in making, oh, it's funny, it has those slides at the end. I think I added this slide after I updated this. So I'll just tell you, we have a part of this design of the new space is a couple spaces that are specifically designed for remote workers. We call them huddle rooms. They're these glass enclosures that are located in the building for people who need to telework or have to take Zoom meetings, or tutors use them, students use them. It's really been kind of an amazing thing. We planned this redesign right after the pandemic, so it was really unclear what libraries were going to look like, but we kind of did correctly anticipate that there would be a bigger need for telework, co-work, those kind of community spaces. So they get used hundreds of times a month.
I was gonna ask, hundreds of times a month they're
I think the number last year was 150, so we have two. So
Per
yeah,
month, yeah.
yeah. So
Per
each,
month.
yeah, so they each get booked 2 or 3 times a day, almost on, just about.
But it dovetails into something that the Nazareth Memorial Library was talking to us about when they were here back in spring, I think, which was the workforce development initiative that they're working on.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought it was
great.
interesting. You had a slide, I think it was on the previous slide, or maybe 2 slides ago, that said, the library is more than just books.
Right.
And that's really the theme of what I've been wanting to do with inviting libraries here
Good,
to
yeah.
this committee during the course of this year, is that libraries are more than books. They are a community hub.
Yes.
That helps not only our workforce, helps our kids, families, with various programs. So I'm sorry don't mean to
Oh,
pontificate
hey, thank
here,
you. You
but
said it better than I could, yeah,
but
thank
the
you.
remote workers initiative
Yeah.
that you have, and just from a workforce development standpoint, I think that's something that's very notable.
Good, yeah, thank you. And part of this, we also have public meeting rooms that are available to be used. The huddle rooms, there's no cost. You just have to reserve time. The meeting rooms, there's a small fee for nonprofits. There's a somewhat bigger fee for businesses, but those are used hundreds of times a month too. All sorts of things from healthcare groups use them, or community groups, say a Boy Scouts, or there's a vegan vibes, vegan advocacy group that meets there, and as well as the Fine Arts Commission and all these other types of groups. So yeah, we've really found that the need for a public place to meet and is one of the one of the areas that, need has really grown. So, whereas some of a library's traditional services aren't as in demand as they once were, some of these other ones are. So we're trying to be very intentional about responding to that need. So, yeah, I thought I'd mention some of the other workforce type stuff, community economic development type stuff. We have recently added this LinkedIn Learning subscription, which is like free to use for anyone who wants to, level up their learning. That's their phrase that they use. It's like you can get certificates and you can get all sorts of soft skills or hard skills taught and for free with your library card. So most libraries' websites, ours included, have like a huge number of resources for the community that are paid for by the library. You just enter your library card number, and then all these free things open up. I mentioned the huddle rooms. There's also a lot of small businesses that use the library for market research, and there's a lot of like business databases too that you can use to help for a business. One of my just like fun things that we started since I've been there is there's a recording studio in the basement of the library. So we're one of the few ones in the country that have that. So that's been really popular. It's used every day. People use it to record podcasts or just rehearse, or it was paid for through a grant in partnership with Lehigh University. It's called the Digital Humanities Initiative, and that was before the pandemic. And so it's like now it's like just sort of rolled into library operations. It doesn't really cost much. We have all the equipment was donated, and all you have to do is book time, and the room is yours. So that's been a really popular thing. We have a big fundraiser concert every year, every November 11th, which is 11/11. So it's easy to remember, Studio 11 Fest. So that's one of my most personal, just like fun favorite events. And as far as like events for the community, we did the math one year. We host over 1,000 events a year. If you count like all the locations and all the story times and all the meetings and all the book clubs, concerts, art programs and stuff. So it's over 1,000 events a year for free at your public library. So we host a lot of events of local interest, try to celebrate the history of the area, work with local creative folks as well as authors. And, the story time, the story programs and all that are one of the cornerstones of the library. We did a major renovation of our children's department soon after I started. So I think it'd be coming up on 9 years now that was open. So when the state librarian visited some years ago, he said it was the most beautiful children's room in the state of Pennsylvania. So I don't know like what his metric was, but I quote it all the time because it made me feel good. So, and it is beautiful, and our staff works really hard to keep it really nice. And we have a very beautiful space for kids and families. And again, it's like designed to meet modern needs. There's a lot of interactive, a lot of touch screens, a lot of places just to play, and a lot of it is really important, for parents as much as for kids. It's just a place to meet and be in a safe place. So we completed a strategic plan cycle at the end of last year, and we are in the beginning of doing that process again. So I'm sort of back to thinking big picture about what the future of public libraries are going to look like. It is obviously a very uncertain time with government funding. We don't get a ton of federal money, but we do get it sort of comes to us through various government programs. There's a lot of state money that is received through the federal money, and then that impacts us through the state library. There's things like the IMLS, which is the Institute for Museums and Library Services, that's funded at the federal level. That funds a lot of our software costs. It's like hard to explain exactly. It's like not like X number of dollars is going to be taken out of our budget, but all these tools that we use will go away if the current trend continues, and that will force libraries to have to pick up the cost and make cuts elsewhere. So it's a very unstable time. Sort of in line with what we were talking about earlier, there's like the economic realities of modern life in the city of Bethlehem definitely like greatly impact the library. We see a ever increasing number of folks using the library as a shelter, all day, every day. There's so many people living on the streets in and around the public library that it really couldn't not impact our services, and it's really a daily challenge to meet the needs of folks who are living day to day at the end of their ropes, and using the library as shelter, as well as all the other needs that a library tries to meet. So, we try to make that balance as best as we can, but it gets harder every day as the number of people living on the streets grows. I do suspect that food insecurity will be part of our strategic plan addressing food insecurity. Libraries across the country have been doing different things in that regard. In the summer, we're like a feeding site, they call it, for the kids, because a lot of kids in school, that's like their best meal that they get. And in the summers, there's not a place to do that. So the state actually started that, and our South Branch is a feeding site. And I've been involved in some calls and focus groups and stuff of different libraries across the country talking about other things that they do. There's some really great initiatives out there. Some of them have resources that we don't, but one of the things I think we're gonna do this year is we're gonna put a hydroponic garden in our location in Bethlehem Township that will grow vegetables. They're gonna have like kids volunteer to grow the vegetables and then donate the food to the.
Is this near Coolidge?
Yeah, it's at
Okay.
Coolidge, yep. That will be, that's just like, I have a meeting about that this week, so that's new and kind of exciting. And there's a lot of, there's just a lot of need, basic human need that is like, obviously, those problems don't disappear at the door to the library. And we are sort of proud to be one of those places that serves the needs of literally everyone in the community from whatever background they might be from, but it definitely is, this definitely is an increasing challenge. We see a lot of, like when we did our staff survey for our last strategic plan, dealing with individuals with untreated drug addiction and mental illness all day, every day is like part of the reality of being a modern urban librarian, and it's one of the things that our staff has been, expressing a need for
Really
training
quick,
and support on.
Josh, obviously you heard the Director of Community Economic Development and I were talking about the food insecurity issue. I was completely unaware that the Bethlehem Area Public Library has initiated, engaging with that issue. Can you just talk about that a little bit? And are there other libraries in our region too that are also initiating programming based on food insecurity as well? Because I'm wondering if we can kind of dovetail some of these things together to help more folks.
Yeah, I guess the main thing that sort of, the sort of like where I came at it from was when we began this feeding program at the Southside Branch. And then we looked for ways to expand that to adults, because that program is it's like up to age 18. And then we partnered with because we just see the need every day, So then we partnered with the local Y. They had a grant to feed, to give dinners to adults, and they just needed a location. So we volunteered to be that. That was grant funded. That ended. That expired.
Right.
But that went on for a period of time, and we really helped a lot of people and saw a major need for it. I since then have just been like trying to connect with other libraries around the country and see like what other options exist to do this kind of thing. So as far as like short term, we have like we call it like a blessing box where people donate food and people take it. We have that at our branch also.
Okay.
So so far it's just like little things, but it's like, I know it's going to be part of our planning process going forward. So I think those are like probably the only concrete initiatives thus far that I have to share. But
Okay, no, great, thank you.
yep, sure. Yeah, where was I? Well, I think that I think I sort of like touched on some of this. These are all just things that like, we're proud to bring to the community we serve. Libraries bring a lot of foot traffic to their community. They bring a lot of creative people, a lot of energy, a lot of educational events, and like we feel as though we're, a cultural anchor for the city and, hopefully for the county as well. I mentioned a little bit of these like challenges that we're facing currently. The federal funding budget is a major challenge. The state budget, as you mentioned, we get the majority of our funding from the local municipal budgets, and then we get a chunk from the state of Pennsylvania, the Department of Ed, the Office of Commonwealth Libraries. And, that's like a significant amount. It's almost $500,000 a year in a $3 million a year budget. So when the state budget's not passed, that causes major problems for us. And when the federal budget's unclear, that causes major problems for us. And, as the economic realities are increasingly hard for many individuals living in our community, that like need for services spills into our community as well. So this is the most important takeaway that everyone has to remember. That's like a placeholder slide that was like left in there by mistake, but it's kind of funny. So we'll ignore that one. We'll even end on this one. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have or give any more
I've been
details.
doing a lot of talking during the course of this committee meeting. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Burke here before we let him go? You're doing fantastic work. In fact, all of our
thank you.
libraries are doing fantastic work in
Thank
this county. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring folks here since the beginning of this year to really talk about not just the challenges, but the real meaningful impact that libraries have. Because, like we said before, it's more than just books.
Right.
And it has never ceased to amaze me how libraries have progressed so well and changed with the times. You have a lot of companies that aren't able to do that. You
Yeah.
have other nonprofits that have challenges as well, but libraries never cease to amaze me in terms of that regard, just
Thank
being
you.
able to
Yeah.
progress with the times. And we have a great system of libraries here in Northampton County. Bethlehem Area Public Library is one. So
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and I'll be in
Thank you.
touch about some other stuff. I have news to share going forward, so.
Fantastic.
Cool. Thank
Fantastic.
you.
We'll bring you back for sure.
All right, very good.
All right, thank you. All right, moving along with our agenda, we've got a presentation regarding the Greater Lehigh Valley Arts and Culture Patron Survey. We've got Meg and Marta here. I'd heard through the grapevine that you were doing this survey, and I said, you know what, we need to bring these ladies here to an Economic Development Committee meeting to really talk about the type of impact that this is going to have, the data that we are going to be, I should say, you are going to be able to get and then hopefully distribute it out to our Northampton County community and even over in Lehigh County as well. That's going to have great economic impact, I think, at some point down the road. So I will let you introduce yourselves and you can take it away.
Tried to introduce each other, and it wasn't quite as smooth as we wanted. So I'm Marta. I actually work at Lafayette College. Oh, sorry. There we go. I'm Marta. I work at Lafayette College as Director of Arts Marketing. My role there sort of is as lead of communication marketing and community engagement for our presenting venues. So that's the Williams Center for the Arts, 3 galleries, Wise Theater, Landis Cinema, and the Experimental Printmaking Institute. And then also I work with admissions and communications on sort of promoting and elevating our 5 academic departments that have to do with the arts. So art, music, theater, film and media studies, and creative writing. And that's sort of what I bring to this project. And then
I'm Meg Mikovits. I'm with the Lehigh Valley Arts and Cultural Alliance. We're a regional arts advocacy organization. We're a nonprofit, and we work with the close to 250 arts and culture nonprofits in the region, as well as independent artists and other supporters of art and institutions that are invested in arts and culture. I'm the assistant managing director and the research coordinator for Lavaca. We're a really small nonprofit, which means I do like a little bit of everything. And excited to work with Marta. We've partnered on some initiatives in the past, including the Lehigh Valley Arts and Culture Convening, which brings together arts leaders from around the Lehigh Valley to just kind of think ahead and think about how collaboration can happen between the different individuals involved in that. We host an event called Young at Art, which is an expo of arts education opportunities for kids and families. We have small grants for artists to do projects that are community engaged, and we engage in research and providing services to nonprofit arts organizations. So yeah, here to talk about
Let's get into the survey here.
into the
and
survey.
What it means.
Greater Lehigh Valley Arts and Culture Patron Survey. So as kind of an overview, and you'll get into the origins in a little bit, as an overview, this is a survey that is meant for any individual living in or around the Lehigh Valley, so Lehigh and Northampton counties and fuzzy boundaries beyond. We are interested in knowing who is engaging with arts and culture events and visiting arts and culture venues in the area. What motivates their participation in doing that? What is a hindrance? So who's not going to events and why not? and questions of that nature, which we'll get a little bit more into detail about. But in general, we hope that this survey lets us understand kind of where organizations can think more strategically about their programming, about their outreach, about the way that they are reaching and could potentially reach more individuals to bring them into events within the Lehigh Valley. The questions on the survey, it's about 70 items, though not everyone will hit all 70 items. There's logic embedded, so if you say no to something, you might skip a group of questions. If you say yes to something, you'll get more detail. But it takes people about 10 minutes to complete, and we are distributing the survey through partnerships with Lehigh Valley arts organizations, media organizations, individuals who feel like sharing. Pretty much any person or community partner who wants to share this survey is invited to do so. And I should mention as well that the data we get from it is totally shareable with anybody who participates. So this isn't like my organization or Lafayette College kind of hoarding information to ourselves. Like, we want this to be available to arts organizations so they can use it with complete transparency for their decision making.
And I think as we talked before too, I mean, even giving it to local municipalities, even having that data for local governments to be able to understand how this can positively impact their communities. Because not every community is the same, of course. So the data points that are going to be derived from this survey, I think is going to be able to really hone in on what certain local governments might be able to do, and other nonprofits and other organizations as well. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, thank you.
So the origins of the project in 2023, right around actually the time that I came to Lafayette in my position, one of the first things that I realized is we know nothing about our audience. So we had huge ambitions, but no data internally to sort of make strategic decisions with the small budgets that we had. So one of the first things that I did is find sort of budget to kind of bring people together into a room. Meg was one of them, and other sort of people from the community, both on campus and off, to develop a survey that was originally intended for internal use. So we wanted to learn about our current audience, about potential audience, what we were doing right and what we weren't. And then Meg and I sort of knew right away that this could be much bigger. And we started sort of small conversations, but as you can imagine, a project like that sort of exhausts you. So I think both of us needed a little bit of sort of time to let it settle. And then we picked it back up, and I want to say probably ramped up this year. So we decided to sort of partner together and kind of become co-leads on, revamping some of the questions, removing some of the brand-specific Lafayette questions, and bringing in some questions that would appeal to a broader sort of organization, cultural and art organization kind of audience, and sort of economic questions as economic drivers. And we launched it in May. So this kind of just shows, Meg touched on the fact that really the sort of strategy and the backbone of this survey is not that we're paying for survey takers, but that it's really a community effort. So the sort of assets for distribution we've created and we're sharing openly, and we're asking any organization, any media partner, any sort of government entity or community entity to sort of share this out with their audience. We have sort of a small list of some of the distributing partners that we have to date that have signed on. And then just above, it kind of, outlines what we feel we kind of bring to the table. So Lafayette College has the sort of research and programming capabilities. We have enterprise account with Qualtrics, which is an industry sort of leader in survey collection and development. It's a program. That's where we're collecting the data. It's a way to safely store it and also be good sort of stewards of that data. And sort of other institutional resources that smaller organizations wouldn't have the means to sort of have access to. And Meg mentioned Lavaca is a sort of regional arts advocate and also a community connector. So almost all the arts and cultural organizations in the area look to Lavaca, for that sort of strategic leadership.
Can I ask really quick too, in terms of your partners?
I thought you were back there first.
That's all right. In terms of the partners, are you able to partner with ArtsQuest, because we know how valuable they are to the community in terms of our arts and culture?
Yeah, so initially we had a couple listening sessions. ArtsQuest did come to those sessions. They did express interest.
Okay.
I mean, Meg can kind of speak a little bit more to that, sort of those conversations. The duration of the survey is pretty extensive. It goes till December. We've had sign up from, or sort of interest from smaller organizations and larger, like Discover Lehigh is a big sort of partner of ours. And we feel like some organizations need to see a little bit of like the momentum before they kind of like jump
Gotcha.
on. I'm not
Yep.
sure if they're one of them, but
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, we've had conversations, just to reiterate what Marta said, with a number of organizations. Nothing negative in terms of we're not doing this.
Right.
But I think, as Marta said, especially some of the bigger ones who might be able to generate their own market research without too much trouble have been not hesitant, but just maybe don't see the need for themselves.
Right.
Although we're trying to,
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
share the message that this is like a rising tide lifts all ships situation, that, Lavaca has a pretty robust email list, but that's the same number of people that are always getting those emails, and that doesn't, capture everyone in the Lehigh Valley.
Gotcha.
We're
Gotcha.
just looking for as broad of distribution as possible. Whoever is interested to get the word out.
Thank you.
really good point that Meg mentioned. I think that, oftentimes, and even us at the beginning, before the listening sessions, we really focused on what large arts and cultural organizations we can get on board. And we quickly realized that, all of these organizations already have their mailing lists, so that data is almost, if they can dig into it, they already have it. And almost what's more valuable is having those sort of maybe like, partners that wouldn't normally have a patron already. So, like Discover Lehigh has people that kind of stretch across all kind of economic drivers, not just art and culture, and we can learn from them. We were partnered with Easton Main Street Initiative, so they're doing it in their newsletter. We have stuff in Easton Public Market. So those are also potential audience members that maybe haven't seen something, are interested in arts and culture, but are foodies. So there's these sort of overarching kind of connections. And I think Meg agrees that some of those partnerships are almost more valuable than just a large sort of collection of
gotcha.
arts and cultural organizations. Although, don't get me wrong, I think ArtsQuest
That makes
being on
sense.
board would be a great
No,
thing.
yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense. No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll just get in a little bit more about what the survey asks. So it gets into attendance behavior, so who's coming to events, how far are they traveling, how often are they going, what kinds of events do they attend? So are they going to the movies, are they going to theater, or to a dance performance, whatever. What are the barriers to access? And that covers financial, that covers access needs in terms of mobility, cognitive disabilities that might impact participation, even things like childcare and whether that's a barrier to participation for people. It asks about their values and kind of what they look for in an arts and culture event. Do they feel represented and kind of, do they feel like these events are relevant to themselves and their lives? Pricing sensitivity is a big part of it, like what price range is comfortable for people and what is sort of out of reach for regular attendance at events. We ask where they find out about events, so what are the channels that they're turning to, whether that's newsletters from ArtsQuest or Discover Lehigh Valley or Morning Call, what's going on kind of event list. And also kind of how far in advance they think about attending events, how they make scheduling determinations, like who in their house is doing that. And then, of course, demographics questions, which are pretty robust, but also voluntary, so if people aren't comfortable sharing, they don't have to. But it will let us pair up kind of, put some different data points together and look for patterns in that way. I don't know whose slide this is.
messed up our slide order, so.
All right, I'll just keep rolling with it till I'm, okay. So implementation strategy, we already talked about this, so I'll just kind of run through, but essentially the goal is for this to be very collaborative, as I said, and we've reiterated, we're not hoarding this data. There's no specific benefit to Lavaca or to the Arts at Lafayette for having this information, but we are interested in just a stronger regional arts and culture community. And for people to be able to make programming decisions and think about ways that they might kind of tinker with their existing programming or build upon that in a way that's data informed and based in what people are saying that they want and need. We're sharing it all over the place if possible. Marta put together a really nice kind of little media kit that has social media graphics. We've got blurbs that can be used for newsletters and for websites and stuff like that, and print resources if people want to print that. But essentially anyone who signs on, this is completely free to participate in, and their investment is just however much time or resources they're able to put into it. So if they just want to copy and paste some stuff into their email newsletter and send it, that's great. If they want to kind of create some more custom content to their organization or print posters or put a QR code in a program book, all that stuff is available for them as well. And we really are just hoping on sharing from as many people and kind of as many sectors as possible. Again, as Marta said, well beyond the arts and culture sphere, we know that people who are on, Zollner's mailing list are on there because they went to an arts and culture event. We're really interested as well in the people who've not gone to an event and who haven't kind of engaged in that way to understand why not and what might be inviting for them to come in. Back to you.
So just to kind of outline the potential or sort of expected survey impact, we kind of broke this slide up into the sort of community benefit and then the sort of economic development potential. So community benefits is, it can identify these unmet needs in both our current sort of audience and then in also our potential audience. The questions are structured in a way where they can kind of, they ask you, what the barriers are, but also what the incentives are or what kind of, helps you kind of attend. Learning what the sort of pricing sensitivities are can help organizations potentially shift their pricing or shift their programming to make things more engaging and accessible. So informing more inclusive programming. So is what the sort of current arts organizations and venues putting on, does it feel inclusive? Does it feel like it's sort of something that you want to come see? Elevating underrepresented voices, and it also empowers data-driven decisions. And I think that, like from my perspective at least, coming from somebody who works with an annual budget, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks is really expensive. So having having data to back up your decisions. So, if you get an overwhelming response that says, we don't like dance programming. Why are we still programming dance then? We don't have audience members. If 7:30 on a Friday is not a good time because everybody's saying it's not, perhaps these organizations can benefit from shifting around their schedule. If most of the response is that they engage in social media but they don't engage in print anymore, maybe you should sort of shift your marketing dollars that way. So really it can allow organizations to make decisions based on informed sort of data rather than a gut feeling, which a lot of people like to rely on, but it's not really budget conscious. And then economic development potential, it can strengthen grant applications because it has the real data that you can back up with the sort of asks that you're putting out. It can align art strategy with regional planning goals, demonstrates art as an economic driver. So I think that, all of us somewhere deep inside, or Meg and I all the time, know that arts and culture is an economic driver, but having data to sort of back that up and being able to sort of put figures and data to kind of back that is really important, and supporting advocacy for infrastructure, access, and investment. So really it can put us at the table, right? Or sort of anybody who's sort of advocating for arts and culture, give them a stronger sort of position at the table.
I would, really quick before we go on, how would it strengthen grant applications by having this data? Because I think there are a lot of local governments and various community entities that would be very interested in knowing that they could potentially be getting more grants coming into their townships, boroughs, cities, wherever, Northampton County even, by having this data. How does this strengthen grant applications?
Meg can definitely speak to that. She's neck deep in grants.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I love to think about grants.
Yeah.
I think, and we'll run through briefly just some of the examples of questions that are in there, but kind of off the top of my head with this survey in particular, there's questions about price points and accessibility, and there are initiatives that were actually nothing concrete happening yet, but we're kind of trying to move into the Lehigh Valley. There are, in Philadelphia, there's a really strong arts access initiative where people with an EBT or a SNAP card get like $3 admission to organizations across Philadelphia and Delaware. And even in the absence of a program like that, if you can link demographic data to people saying like, I simply cannot afford to do this, there's programs, like grant programs to kind of subsidize cost for certain groups, but particularly kids and family groups, that sort of thing. Kind of on that topic as well, there's questions about childcare. So if we can think about, as we put together grant proposals for programming, maybe part of that is having some kind of activity that's parallel, that's good for kids to be at while parents are doing like a non-kid friendly part of an event or something like that. I'm sure from like a regional kind of community, township, borough, county perspective, there's other ways to look at this kind of information. So we'll share it with you and you can tell us
Fantastic.
what you think when we've got the data.
Great.
Yeah, I think what Meg's basically, I mean, what Meg is basically saying is that there's data in there to show need, right? So if there's a sort of question that asks about, well, one of the biggest barriers is lack of childcare, then you have a sort of data-driven sort of need for childcare in order for your community to be able to engage in arts and culture, which has proven benefits for sort of health, mental, and physical, you know, so I think that it just kind of gives you, again, that edge and that sort of grounding and foundation to sort of put out an ask and show that there's sort of documented need.
You're the Qualtrics expert. You want to jump on that
Oh,
one?
okay, yeah, sure. So Qualtrics is the platform that that Lafayette sort of uses, and that I have basically grown to have an intimate relationship with because I programmed the whole entire survey in there. Lost a lot of hair, gained a lot of grays, but it's great. So it's a pretty robust platform. It allows for sort of you know, anonymity. Say the word for me.
Anonymity.
Yes. So our sort of our survey takers are able to stay anonymous. So that kind of gives the security. The data is secure on the platform. There's programming where you can kind of do the different logic where it allows you to sort of segue one way or another. There's programmed in sort of disclaimers and you know, ways that you kind of opt in. We make sure we don't gain any sort of survey responses from 18 and under. So there's a lot of things that are built into the program that allow for a pretty robust survey, a really professional survey. The duration of the survey is from April 30th through the 31st, so the end of the year, which seems like a large stretch of time, but we strategically did that to accommodate the sort of seasons and peaks in a lot of the different sort of arts and culture venues and organizations. So for example, at Lafayette, our peak is sort of in the fall and spring. We don't program in the summer because we don't have any students, and you know, we love to sort of offer these things to our students. Whereas Arts Quest, for example, has a really robust season during the summer. PA Shakes has a really robust season during the summer. So we really wanted to make sure that we were sort of allowing all of these organizations to tap into their audience when their audience was most sort of engaged. And then data analysis. So the initial cleaning and analysis will begin in January. And then the data will be shared with participating organizations for internal use at that time. So that's going to be the sort of raw data. Each organization can sort of use that in whatever capacity they can. Meg and I completely understand that not every organization knows how to sort of analyze data and really kind of pull from it what you can in a really complex way, which is why we plan on also doing community presentations and public reporting later in the spring with more sort of complex structures of sort of cross-tabulating those questions. And we have a bit of sort of information on that as well.
Let's get you back here in April or May of
Yes.
next year.
So this is a little bit about that sort of layered analysis. So, you know, the sort of questions can be read as they are, right? Like, what's your zip code? What's your age? And those are already informative, and you can kind of look at them that way. But one of the really interesting things about sort of analyzing this data is finding ways to sort of pair and match and cross-tab questions to come up with more complex sort of analysis and information about those responses. And the sort of One sort of avenue of that is the program design, which I think that the arts organizations will be really interested in. So the who, the why, the when, right, in their programming. But then also those sort of economic drivers. So thinking about demonstrating unmet demand and the sort of quantifying representation gaps for lower attendance and how those can sort of be looked at. So here's some of those sort of potential.
Yeah, so just for some kind of general examples of like the way we could look at these, I think there's what, around 70 questions. So there's a lot of ways to sort of slice and dice this data when it comes in. So thinking about in a very straightforward way, like are there identity characteristics that are folks who are not represented in actual attendance at events? And so what are some of those barriers? It could be access issues, it could be representation, cultural kind of language barriers, that are all things that institutions can think about whether they're equipped to address or are able to kind of partner to address those issues, make facilities upgrades or other things that might be, range anywhere from $0 to a lot of dollars, but could bring people in the door who otherwise feel like there's a barrier there that they aren't sort of welcome at a space. Accessibility needs is a big one of that. There's a lot of focus in the arts and culture world on access. The top of my mind, Touchstone Theater in Bethlehem is a great example of a place that's done a ton of work in that area recently, both with like structurally, they removed a couple rows of seats to make more accessible, kind of flexible seating areas, and also just thinking about sound sensitivity and sensory issues and closed captioning for live performances and things that make their performances just more accessible to people, so that if you have some sort of a disability, the burden's not on you to say, oh, please, can you help me access this programming? You can just go there and know that they've put those accommodations in place and it's not burdensome for you and your family to go enjoy an event there. But these kinds of questions that'll ask about access needs, barriers people are facing, demographics, and then tying that into, are these people going to events? Are they feeling like they are more or less like welcome or inclined to participate, will give us a lot of information about how those barriers can be addressed by different organizations.
So market segmentation and strategic programming. So that's something that arts organizations will be specifically probably interested in. So we have these 3 questions that talk about, well, the first question is past art education exposure. So we have a question that specifically asks, have you attended in your sort of youth or adolescence after school art programming? And then cross-tabbing that with current attendance patterns, and then cross-tabbing those two with willingness to pay and incentive preferences. So seeing if there's a correlation between after-school arts programming, attending them, and then whether or not you're more likely to be a sort of current attendee of those art programs in your adulthood, and how much do you value those at monetarily, right? And if there is a correlation, there's your reason for asking for grants for, sort of after-school programming or early sort of education programming in the arts. Another sort of cross-tab, decision-making role in household. So we have a question that asks, are you the main decision maker? Do you not make decisions at all? Or do you sort of co-make decisions about what you're attending in arts and culture? Preferred event types, so music, dance, theater, and then scheduling preferences. So do you like to go, what time of day, what day of the week, during what season, and how does that change? And that can enable arts organizations to fine-tune how they're sort of scheduling their events. And maybe that can even change seasonally, right? Maybe during the winter, people don't want to be out at 8 p.m. They'd rather do a matinee. Maybe during the summer, they're more willing to go to an evening performance during the week because, I don't know, they're working less. Who knows, right, if they're lucky. So again, it's kind of creating these complex algorithms out of the sort of general one-off questions to create more complex sort of answers. So the sort of experience design, this is another one that organizations will be interested in. So, the event type that you sort of prefer, and then your preferred advanced decision time. So are you making a decision to attend that a week out, a month out, a day out, you know, those sort of have changed post-COVID. And then time of year and day preference, and that helps optimize messaging. So are you sort of paying for advertising a week out, or are you sort of paying for 2 months of advertising? You know, so you're not wasting dollars. And then barriers, interest drivers, and demographic traits. So it enables us to sort of think about bridging interventions. So something that we kind of talked about, you know, should we be offering childcare-friendly scheduling? Like that, would that really make a difference, and for what programs? What about family bundles, right? Like, would that make a difference in somebody's incentive to attend? Our last slide, I promise.
Yeah, again, we'll just reiterate the need for people to share this survey in order for it to be successful. I mean, we both at our organizations have shared it out a lot among our channels that we have access to, but the more the merrier. We want to just cast a really wide net across, you know, again, people who are currently arts and culture patrons, and especially people who aren't, because we're interested to know why. And I know that other arts organizations are always, you know, growing your audience is always top of mind, and so we want to know how that can happen. So the best help that you can be to this is to share the survey with your networks. If you are connected to organizations who have, you know, email, social media, ways to get out to the public, sharing it with them is great as well. Again, there's no cost, and Marta and I have put together a lot of resources so that the lift is not heavy. You can pretty much copy and paste what we have available if you're not, if you're an organization that doesn't have the capacity to do more than that.
And that's us.
That's us, and that
Fantastic.
QR code will take you to the web page on Lavaca's website that has all the resources and has our contact information, forms to reach us, as well as a link to the actual survey, which you should all take.
Yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. And just for everybody so they know, lvaca.org/research/lv-arts-culture-survey. It's really important that we get this data, I think, simply because of the economic development drivers that you really touched on. You know, I think sometimes the arts is a forgotten area of economic development, and you are taking things to another level, for sure, and will be, in terms of getting this data and really helping us understand more folks here in our area too. So, does anybody in the committee have any questions here? Oh, Keegan.
What was your goal for the number of participants?
I don't know if we have a specific, do we have a number in mind?
We don't. We did sort of initially do some soft sort of kind of number pushing, like if we were hoping for, let's say, 5% of certain populations. I think that if we got to about like 3,000 responses, we would have enough to sort of, you know, be able to feel confident in the sort of crosstabs that we're doing. That would be a great number. I think if we get over 1,000, we would still be good. But if we can get 10,000, you know, yeah. So, but yeah, I think that like the sweet spot for us would be around 3,000.
Thank you.
No other questions? No? Absolutely. Ms. Smith? Yes.
So the survey it takes 10 minutes. There's the questions, it's not so much as 70 questions, there's sort of 70 ways that you can navigate through it. So like if you say yes to something, it may ask you 2 questions, but if you say no to another one, it might take you somewhere else. So if you kind of look at all of it as just an outline, it's 70, but yep.
Meg, Marta, thank you so very much. Very much appreciate you taking the time, and really, we got to have you back next spring for sure to talk about the data and what it will end up meaning for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Next on the agenda is discussion regarding the 2025 CDBG projects.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
afternoon.
So, before I bring up Frank to go over this year's application pool, I think it's important to kind of go over CDBG in general. So, we're all here because we're here to make a difference in our communities. That's why we run for office, that's why we work in government. Now, there's a general negativity around the perception on the government's ability to provide a benefit to its citizens. Now, back in 1974, in Gerald Ford's administration, the Housing and Community Development Act created CDBG. Now, it's 50 years of bipartisan support going out to helping those most in need here in our communities. Now, nominally, that number hasn't necessarily changed, but it hasn't increased with our ability with inflation. So while the number hasn't been affected over the last 50 years, our ability to do more things with it has changed. And most recently, the current administration has suggested to cut the program entirely. Now, as of in July, the Senate Appropriations Committee did put it back at the same level, but I want to reiterate, the history of CDBG is one of the biggest successes that we have here in government. It's kind of it's the epitome of what we can do when we actually all come together to do good things. Now, CDBG has three main national objectives. It's to benefit low and moderate income people, aid and prevent the slums and blight, as well as meet the urgent needs of community development. Now, this year, it becomes challenging every year as we go on to do more and more with the money we have. We hear about the needs here in the county, about just being able to do more with less, and that's only going to get worse if the current state of federal spending continues. And I think it's just important to keep that in mind and realizing that as federal budgets continue to get bigger and bigger, no matter who's in power, the money still goes up. It's these programs that actually go to the local needs of our communities. So I think it's important to keep that in mind as we look into these projects. Northampton County as an entitlement community gets about $2.2 million. $1 million of that goes to Easton as part of the consortium. Bethlehem is not a part of it. They have their own entitlement community. So this is truly going to our most needy populations to do the most good. So I will bring up Mr. Frank Brooks to go over this year's applications.
Thank you, Mark, for that wonderful introduction, and good afternoon, committee and council members. I am Frank Brooks. I'm the administrator for DCED, and I work on a lot of your big federal programs. So the resolution before you is requesting approval on the 2025 annual action plan that we have to submit to HUD in order to secure $2,250,595 of CDBG funds. And through our joint efforts with Easton, the county will also receive home funds of $649,909.47. I don't know why, but I'll take it. And ESG funds of $197,583. So for this year's CDBG application round, Northampton County received 20 applications, and the city of Easton received 16. So we are proposing to fund all these 36 applications with CDBG funds. So our department ran a process in order to secure this funding that started in February, scheduling a grant workshop that 150 interested persons signed up to attend. During March, the department notified our municipalities and agencies about the release of the updated 2024 census numbers, which really caused a real shift in some of the income areas within the county. So this outreach resulted in, I'm very happy to say this, 5 new first-time applicants submitting this year. So I'd like to quickly describe some of this year's activities to be considered for funding. We are proposing funding several community facilities with needed improvements. At the Senior Citizen Center in Hellertown, where some repointing to the brick facade is needed to stop water damage. In Nazareth, the YMCA building is adding an elevator so our residents can have easier access. At the Bloom for Women shelter location in Bangor, this project will complete some needed ADA restroom improvements. We propose to fund 4 municipalities towards their street and road improvement projects. In Bangor Borough, as part of their North Main Street Road Plan. In East Bangor, along Blaine Street. In Lehigh Township, some needed improvements on Timberline Road. And in Upper Mount Bethel Township, along Jacoby Creek Road. Also, in Wilsonboro, improvements in their Miser Park area and in Walnut Park. This project will assist the borough's efforts in replacing 50-year-old water mains. All of the proposed activities will meet the HUD requirements that we have to look at, and the funding is directed into areas where a majority of our residents have low to moderate incomes. All these activities being proposed in this resolution will make quality improvements in these neighborhoods where our residents live. Thank you. Any questions?
Just again, these are all the applications that came in. We're
All
gonna
the
be able
applications that
to-
came in.
We're going to be able to fund those.
All 20 on our side
Fantastic.
and all 16 on the City of Easton's. We ran a process.
Any other questions? All right. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Fantastic. I think we're good. I think we're good here. I'm hoping that our colleagues will be supporting these 2025 CDBG projects. So with that said, really quick too, before we adjourn, I know the county executive announced that the IDA had approved the TIF for Dixie. The TIF committee met recently to discuss the TIF for the Dixie Factory project, and as the county executive mentioned, things are going to be moving along with that in the future. So I just wanted to mention that. I was on that call with LVEDC along with Ms. Smith, so I just wanted to mention that too. I wasn't aware that the county executive was going to come in and give us the update. So that being said, we're going to adjourn Community Economic Development Committee meeting. Thank you, everybody.